Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we are returning to War in the Pacific Admirals Edition, our Let's Play series against Evoken. It is the June 11th, 1942 turn replay, and we'll see what's going on here. It's been a little bit of a lull, although we bombarded Sumatra not that long ago, and we had some interesting stuff going on there, but I do feel like lame. Alright. The Cornish city was just torpedoed to the west of Rangoon, and she sank. Lovely. Well, I feel like it's generally been a little bit of a slow couple of turns here, but I am putting things into place ever so slowly to begin a counteroffensive, probably in the early fall, late summer of 42. I will reveal more plans as we get closer to that, but I am moving troops into position to be able to support such actions, while also being ready to withstand enemy movements in the event that the Japanese continue their offensives in the Pacific. So we are in the process of bringing a Marine division in its entirety to Australia. It'll be formed up and ready for assault. The division should arrive inside of 30 days in Australia. Some parts of it are already there. We also already have an Army division in Australia, so we will be ready for a full two-division punch. Probably actually a third Marine division will be in Australia inside 30 to 45 days. And so in theory, we could launch a pretty hefty assault. I think the main problem for a counteroffensive is going to be actually getting enough troop transports to unload quickly, because at this stage, most of the transports are kind of like transport, passenger liners, as opposed to something that can quickly and easily unload heavy forces over a beach. You get a lot of that stuff later in the game, I believe, but at the moment, American amphibious capabilities, while there, are somewhat limited for unloading over the beach. So it's a limitation the Japanese have also, but it's just something to kind of be aware of. Meanwhile, this turn fairly quiet so far. We had one torpedoing of a merchant ship, couple of other submarines detected, both ours and theirs. No depth charges dropped as far as I'm aware, and that looks like that's it for the naval and air phases, so really a quiet turn. Again, we did lose, I think that was a pretty valuable cargo ship. More bombardment going on in the Philippines. Oh, I need to turn that off. You are not watching that. For the folks watching live on the stream, an alert is firing for a game that I'm most definitely not playing. But anyway, let's get back to this. Okay, so some more bombardments going on, but yeah, overall, very quiet turn. I think that's it, right? Sorry, Ben, what guy? Extra Chris? Alright, so pretty quiet turn. Not really anything that happened. We did lose one ship. That's about it. It was a late joke. Okay. Alright, so let's take a look at the turn here. So we did lose one ship. Let's quickly jump in and take a look at the ship sunk screen last turn. The Cornish city, only 8 points, which I guess is moderate for a cargo ship. Cargo capacity 4,100, so just kind of a run-of-the-mill, even by its name. It's a Euro M cargo class. Okay, so just sort of a generic cargo ship with a moderate endurance and capability. Did make 14 knots, so I guess that does make it a bit of a better ship in terms of its speed. But nonetheless, it is what it is. We lost that ship. It was off the western coast of Burma, or at least west based on our, I think this is northeast, southwest. Right? No, definitely not. The map is rotated. I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Anyway, cargo ship. I'm not sure what task force it was a part of. If it was part of one of these task forces bringing in more supply. I don't think we had a 13th. Maybe it was in this task force. Task Force 91. But we didn't have anyone attack the sub, so it could have... No, I don't think it was in an AKL task force. I guess it could have been a 2-ship task force along with the Atolla. I'd have to go back and look. But that would match. They were both 14-knot ships. So perhaps it was a returning task force, and we didn't actually lose anything of substance. I am getting over a sickness, Machiavelli, so I do apologize, everybody, if my voice sounds a bit raspy. I didn't want to wait forever to do another turn, but yeah, my voice is not all there. So if that makes it unlistenable, I do apologize, but it is what it is. Meanwhile, we have about 18,000 supply unloading in Rangoon right now. 2 AKs and the rest are AKLs, already somewhat unloaded. We also did used some op points and pulled 4,000 fuel out of Rangoon to resupply those ships because Rangoon produces its own fuel. And in the eventual date where Japan possibly takes this base from us, I would like them to take as little fuel as possible. So I'm totally happy with pulling fuel out of there for our own purposes. We could even pull oil out too, although it has a refinery that converts oil to fuel, so that's less of a risk. So we've got 12,000 more to unload. We've got those 2 cargo ships are leaving. We've got another 9,600 arriving tomorrow, so 21,000 between them. And we are also bringing 1,400 supply to Great Nicobar, which we have a Catalina squadron based out of there. We do have a little bit of aviation support based on the base force here, but there's no supply. So I assume they won't be able to repair those planes until the supply arrives. So we've got a small amphibious task force that's going to unload over the beach with a small amount of supply, which is all that's needed there. Meanwhile, we do have carriers that are in movement. So the Japanese did bomb Coast Island again. This is sort of an outpost of ours to the west of Java and Sumatra that perhaps I foolishly placed 2 pretty decent pioneer battalions on. But the goal here is to kind of have a bit of an anchor against the Japanese so that if they try and push west, they've at least got to commit a reasonable amount of forces there to take it. So Coast, you can see here, has 3 fortifications working on a level 4 fort. If they get to level 4, that'll help a lot. But they continually are getting bombed by the Japanese. These troops started out with 24 squads. They've lost about a third of their strength here. Not lost, but lost in effectiveness. So they're providing a bit of a free training ground for Japanese bombers. This may be an overcommitment of forces, but I said, hey, I don't have any aircraft that can reach Coast right now. There is actually no airfield here yet. I don't have supplies to operate here. But the Japanese are largely sending unescorted Bettys or Nels there from Palembang, I believe. So I am planning on bringing a small little ambush party. Frankly, I'm not using the British carriers at all. And so rather than just sit unused in India, I've sent the Formidable and the Hermes, along with the battle cruiser Repulse, which is fully repaired and in action as an escort, to perhaps provide a little bit of a surprise to the Japanese. Now, this is not without risk, right? If the Japanese deployed a major carrier task force here, we would be in serious trouble. That being said, I'm assuming they have no reason to think that we will do this. You know, it's probably an overcommitment of forces to try and ambush 6 or 7 bombers. So to that end, deploy a carrier task force to deal with it. So we are bringing these guys down here to Coast. They will sit off the west coast where they will largely be safe from enemy torpedo attack from the mainland and then fly cap over Coast, hopefully timing that cap to a Japanese assault where they can shoot down Japanese bombers in numbers. So that hopefully if the Japanese are training, 20 airmen, they might lose a third of their training force rather than, a free training base indefinitely, right? It'll make them think twice, perhaps, about bombing easy targets for free XP to build up a surplus of pilots. Well, let's kill some of those pilots, right? And do some damage there. Additionally, we are also sending a tanker task force out that way because I think those carriers are going to need some replenishment. I probably should have done this sooner, but we do have a fleet oiler that can make 18 knots with about 14,000 fuel. So we're going to send it. It's leaving Bombay this turn. It'll link up at Colombo to resupply, and then it will sail off the coast of, well, I guess fairly far off the coast of Diego Garcia, waiting for the carrier's return journey, so that way if they do have to book it, if they do have to move at flank speed to escape, they will have some supplies to do that. So that's also why we stopped, wait, no, not these guys. That's also why we stopped these guys at Colombo on their way. But you can see some of these units, in theory, if they move at this speed the whole way, they will have enough fuel and a little bit of spare change to get away, but not really to spend a full turn moving at flank speed. So the tankers hopefully will meet up with them and allow them that freedom of movement. If they do have to book it and they're out this way, they won't end up stranded. We'll have some tankers. They can also pull back to Diego Garcia and wait in the anchorage there for some tankers. Not the most well thought out logistical assault by me. The tankers should have been moving earlier, but nonetheless, they are on the way now. Additionally, a lot of convoy stuff going on this turn. Trying to think here. There is a Japanese sub apparently in Rangoon Harbor, but the harbor is big enough that they can't attack the ship's anchor. I believe the rule is if a port is a size 3 or smaller, submarines can actually sneak into the anchorage and torpedo stuff. If ports are larger than 3, then they have things like torpedo nets, which make infiltration not really something you have to worry a whole lot about. Rangoon supplies up to 87,000, so again, a good chunk of supply there, and then more supply sort of sprinkled throughout Burma to hopefully help in any potential move. We also are seeing maybe the signs of some buildup of Japanese forces. I don't know that I've seen a ton of change in the strength that they have in Thailand, but I do think like we've seen a slight increase at Piskanolki, and these guys, that doesn't look like they're in movement, but 6 units here. This could be an invasion force for Burma, perhaps. They do have, I think, 1 division here southeast of Chiang Mai, so that's something we need to be mindful of. And then I have also begun an assault on Tavoy. Now, this may be foolish. This may get a brigade destroyed, but I do want to keep the Japanese on their toes. So we are moving the 4th Indian Brigade, which is our least experienced and least quality Indian Brigade in the region. And we are sending them south toward Tavoy, because Tavoy is a nice big fat airbase, level 4 airfield. So they can operate twin-engine bombers out of here fairly effectively to support their invasion of Burma. So if we can divert their attention to retaking Tavoy, that would be great. If there's no one there, we can continue advancing toward Mergui, and maybe even down toward Victoria Point. I don't think that'll happen, but, you know, maybe we'll catch some aircraft on the ground. Maybe we'll just force a diversion of his troops toward Tavoy. Maybe it'll delay them. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe the boys are just going to get slaughtered and nothing good will happen. But they are going to hug this river road, or this ocean coast road, staying out of Thailand altogether, and then moving toward Tavoy there. Not a lot of other changes in China. No real indication of any movement or anything like that. We're continuing to build up forts, but nothing really worth showing, I don't think. So that's the situation there. The Philippines continues to not be great. You know, they haven't died yet, I guess. That's the saving grace. But the supply situation is dire. No one has even a third of the required supplies for their units here. So these boys, some of these units are already starving out. You can see their assault value on a lot of these is gone. The suppression value is going up, and that's not just because of bombardment, but that's also just because of, you know, units not having any supply. Now, some of these guys still nominally have, 37 squads. Okay, but that's, that doesn't mean they're going to fight effectively with no supply if they're attacked. So that's, I guess, something to consider. But they haven't surrendered yet, so for the moment anyway. Clark Field continues to be contested, Bataan continues to be in our control, and the Philippines continues to soldier on in the second week of June. I think he's really just trying to wait him out, because once they're at zero supply, it basically is a free assault for him. So he probably, the logic here, I think, is Japan doesn't benefit speeding up the assault on the Philippines other than it frees up forces to redeploy elsewhere. As far as we've seen, they only have 2 actual divisions in the assault force at Clark Field. That may not be enough to attack us. It is not enough to attack us if we have supply. So he may just be waiting until he knows for a fact the supplies drop to a point, or until does he need one of those divisions somewhere else? If his plans in Burma haven't matured enough yet to be ready there, maybe he doesn't even need a division there, right? They've taken most of the territory Japan realistically is probably going to take, unless they're going to do something crazy like invade Australia. But it's just a question of, does he need to free those troops up to go somewhere else? Right now, it seems like he thinks he does not. So whatever that means. Meanwhile, we have started unloading. I'd been talking about bringing a Marine division to Australia. We have actually started unloading one of those divisions here. The 2nd Marine Regiment is unloading at Melbourne, and this Marine Regiment is part of, no, not that. This Marine Regiment is part of the 2nd Marine Division, all of which, except for a small detachment at Savi, all of which is on its way to Melbourne. So I said we should have a division of Marines in Melbourne inside 30 days. Might be less than that, right? So we've got Task Force 136, which is nearing Melbourne right now. So far, no sign of submarines. Please God, please God, please God, do not torpedo any of those ships. Task Force 51 is already in port at Melbourne, so they are already unloading. And then there was another task force in there too. Task Force 80 or 57 is there. 89 is also very, very close. And 95 is at Savi. So the problem is I made kind of a mistake. I wanted to retake Savi from the Japanese and do it well. And so we landed a full Marine regiment at Savi, and it overwhelmed the Japanese guard unit there for one of our first counterattacks that was successful, which was good. The problem now is the port at Savi can only hold the maximum size ship at the docks of 6,000 tons, which is not very large. And you can imagine a Marine regiment needs more than one small cargo ship to transport it. So we've already got one cargo ship which has left the port here with elements of that regiment, elements of the 8th Regiment. The Alcoa Pennant is on its way to Australia, also pulling 700 supplies out of Savi, which I would rather they not have done, but I didn't hit the button to turn off load supply when you load troops. I didn't make that mistake a second time, as the Morella has started loading the 8th Marines, 2nd Regiment, on its whatever, cargo. And so I've turned load cargo off, so they will only load troops and cargo from the unit. They will not load any supply. And so they can bring 2,100 troop capacity, 900 cargo capacity. Now, what does that mean? 2,100 troop, 900 cargo. So they have 2,200 troops left on the island of Savi in terms of the load cost, and 2,800 cargo, which will leave them with what, like 150 troop and then 1,700. Oh God, I can't do math. 900. Okay. So they'll have 1,900 cargo left, and they will have 20 or 150 or so troop load cost. So most of the troops will be gone. There will still be a fair bit of cargo left over to transport out. And again, this is a 4,900 ton amphibious ship. We have a couple of other amphibious ships in the port, but they were all too big to dock. So like this one is 6,200 tons. That's 200 tons too large to fit on the ways, which would have been, a nice ship to load up. Anyway, so we're going to load that up. There'll be about 100 troop cargo left. And then what we can do is we can load up probably one of our AKs. That's 6,300. That's or 6,030. They're all too big. Damn. Well, we're going to have to do probably, there's another one of these which has 2,100 troop and 900 cargo. We could do this one, which has 1,800 cargo and 1,600 troops. That'll get the rest of the troops off. It will leave about 100 or so cargo left. So we'll have to do 2 more load-ups of troops. But nonetheless, give it another week, and we should have the entire regiment off of Savi. Meanwhile, what else is going on? Cargo ships. Vensk, thank you for the resub. Appreciate the support. 34th Infantry is on its way back to Pearl. So these guys had been at Pago. We had sent them early in the campaign to reinforce that critical base. However, the 34th Infantry Regiment is part of the 24th Infantry Division. And my goal is to concentrate infantry divisions all together. It does make sense sometimes to have individual regiments broken out of divisions, but I would rather the divisions and regiments all be at the same base, so if we do need to combine them for a major operation, we can do that. And so I'm moving the 34th Infantry Regiment back from Pago Pago to Pearl Harbor now that other regiments have arrived, now that the Rocky Mountain Ranger Battalion has arrived, the 151st Combat Engineer Battalion has arrived. There's a Marine battalion from Samoa, and the 7th Marine Defense Battalion has arrived. The 24th Separate Infantry Regiment, a standalone infantry regiment, that's the main one that arrived that I'm like, all right, I can pull these guys out. We have a replacement regiment that arrived at Pago. Let's pull the 34th Infantry Regiment back to Pearl. They will then join the 19th and 21st Infantry Regiments, which are currently there. And those guys are set to restricted HQs, which does make moving this division more difficult, which is one of the reasons I sent them out there in the first place. But, you know, we'll get political points to do that. We'll have enough political points to change the headquarters on one of the regiments in 3 days before the other one even arrives. And then we can give it like 2 weeks, and then the other one will have enough political points too. So also I think you get a cheaper, I think it's cheaper if you move within a headquarters. So instead of like they're currently assigned to Hawaii Department, it is less expensive if you want to move them to a parent. So like I have enough. So this is not totally clear to me, but look at this. We've got 523 political points available to us. It costs 652 to change. What that 652 costs is if I want to move them to a different headquarters entirely, if I want to move them to the South Pacific. So it's grayed out. I can't do that. I don't have the 652 points. But a smaller number of this, smaller than the 652, is required to move it to a headquarters unit within the same headquarters. So Hawaii Department is part of the Pacific Ocean area. I could move them to the 5th Amphibious Corps right now, or the 1st Amphibious Corps right now, and be fine. I don't know how much exactly it would cost, but it wouldn't cost the 652. So we could do that in theory for some of these regiments to get the 24th Infantry Division ready to move. I'm not going to do that right now because I might want the political points for something else. But I think we can form that division up fairly quickly and get another division ready before too long. So those guys are headed back to Pearl. That's, I'm very proud of myself about that, about moving these guys from, I think, the West Coast to Pago. They got to hang out at Pago for like a month or two, and now they're moving back from Pago back to Pearl. That feels very government. It feels not in a political way, but that feels very like you hear stories from veterans of like, and then they moved us to this godforsaken place, and we didn't know why we were there. And then 2 weeks they made us pack everything back up and get up and move over here. So that feels very, very authentic to the veteran experiences I have heard about. Anyway, so what else is going on? Not a lot, honestly. Pretty quiet turn, like I said. We've got the Enterprise on its way to the Pacific, moving through the Panama Canal, so we've got another carrier there. We've got the Wasp on its way to Pearl right now, so we'll have the Wasp and the Enterprise at Pearl before too long. We've already got the Hornet sort of operating here to the east of Baker Island, primarily as sort of an emergency support in the event that these cargo ships unloading cargo and troops at Baker Island run into trouble. This goes back to what I said about the problem with the transports and the inability to unload effectively through amphibious transports. So we got most of the troops ashore, but their supply is taking a good long while to come ashore, and also the 93rd Coastal Anti-Aircraft Unit is also taking a while to come ashore. These guys have been here for like 4 or 5 days unloading. So we've got a carrier sort of waiting in the wings beyond where I think the Japanese have any ability to see them, as long as we don't run into a submarine. Providing sort of theoretical support if the Japanese send like a cruiser raiding force out this way. But yeah, these guys are unloading very slowly. The docks are too small for the task force. Actually, there are no docks. So they're just unloading over the beach, and it's a slow process. We've got 1,100 supply, so we've got a decent chunk of supply at this point, which is nice, but we probably need to overbuild. We need to overstack and put a port in here. Can't do that very easily. Probably need more supplies than we have here, but in any event, the 93rd Coastal Artillery Regiment does have 50 cal machine guns, 37mm anti-aircraft guns, 75mm anti-aircraft guns ashore. One of the reasons they're also taking longer to unload is they probably have some heavy equipment that usually needs cranes to unload, like motorized support vehicles. That's taking a while to do over the beach. But anyway, first, speaking of the 1st Marines, the 1st Marines over here, they're on the East Coast. They're just hanging out. And I think we're going to move them. I don't know where. I'm waiting for some transport ships to arrive on the East Coast. But this is the 3rd Division I was talking about. We could move these guys from the East Coast to Perth and then that would give us the Americal Division, which is already in Australia. I believe they're at Sydney. Yep. So we could have the Americal Division, we could have the 2nd Marines in Melbourne, and then we could have the 1st Marines in Perth. So we could have 3 American divisions in Australia inside 45 days, in which case, like I said, late summer counteroffensive, those guys could start prepping, while we wait. And we could have an offensive ready for, I don't know, say, what would that would put us early August? Probably wouldn't launch it in early August. That feels very Watchtower-esque based on the timing that'll all be available. But maybe we launch an assault on New Caledonia, right? We really need to take some of these bases back. It might make more sense to break them up into individual regiments, drop a regiment at Tana, drop a regiment at Fate, drop a regiment at somewhere we can have a port and a decent airbase, which is not any of these dot bases. I feel like Espiritu Santos might be too strong to drop a single regiment. We probably would need a division to drop them at Luganville. I don't know what the stack limit is here. There might not be one. Does it tell you when there's a stack limit? Yeah. So there isn't one. So maybe we'd drop 2 divisions at Luganville and 1 at Fate and just call it a day and just cut the enemy off that way. And then let the rest of these guys starve. Because if we got strong air at Luganville, which is already a very nice base, we could shut everything south of it down. We could basically starve New Caledonia out. Alternatively, we could drop 2 divisions at Nomaya and 1 at Comac and try and take New Caledonia back at 1 full sweep. That might be easy. I don't think he's got a considerable force at New Caledonia. I could be wrong. Launching a campaign there for him would be very difficult because we could just keep pouring supplies in from Australia this short distance away, whereas he would rapidly burn through his supplies and, it would only be a matter of time. The complicating factor is if he's got the carriers anywhere around, we might have 1 or 2 days of landing before they come in and hit us. And again, with the inefficient ability to drop troops over the beach, or more so their supplies, you could have a Guadalcanal situation where the troops are cut off with no supply. We might be able to fly some supply in. We could fly some supply in from Brisbane to at least Comac with like B-17s and stuff. Yeah, we could do Comac or Nomaya with emergency supplies coming by air. But again, if he's got any considerable air force in the area, that would make that very, very risky. American carriers are kind of split up. So I showed you the 3 carriers that are all headed for Pearl. We've got 2 carriers in South Africa undergoing refits right now. So you've got the Lexington and Saratoga, which are both out of action for the next 19 days because they've done 2 upgrades, actually. They're getting radars and 20mm Orlikons, so they will be much more effective ships, but I cannot move them for the next almost 3 weeks. And then the Enterprise and the Hornet and the Wasp all either there or on the way to Pearl. And then we also have the Yorktown, which is on the way to South Africa as well. She will be due for an upgrade in about 2 weeks. Ideally, we'll race her out to Pearl as well and do the upgrade there. So we had all of our carriers in and around India, but I basically have decided it doesn't make sense to commit our carriers into the Bay of Bengal. I do think the Japanese are going to launch a major offensive toward Burma. The British carriers are remaining here, but given the amount of land-based aviation that we have at Burma, given the risk to our own ships against the enemy fleet, it just feels more intelligent, I think, to base our defense of India on land-based air while we move the carriers to the Pacific, where they can potentially support a drive against sort of the South Pacific bases, or maybe a probe into the Central Pacific. It's very risky. The Japanese haven't lost any carriers yet. So, you got to keep them concentrated, and we don't know yet. This is all very up in the air. I think the turn is pretty much done. Burma, I would think that is their priority. That I would think, again, if he waits till I get considerable numbers of B-24s, then bases like Molmine is in range of B-24s of Medan, where they're producing a very considerable amount of oil. Not a ton, it's not Palembang, but a decent amount of oil. It's also easily within range of B-17s and B-24s of Bangkok, and even within fighter escorts. Bangkok has a refinery, not a big one, but it does have a refinery for converting oil to not natural gas, from oil to fuel. And also just, it also puts in like targets in Indochina and whatnot at risk. aircraft flying out of there could pose a threat to coastal shipping in and along the Indochina, coast. So he really should not allow us to have. And if again, long way away, but if we get to 43 and he hasn't taken Burma, B-29s, I think I did the math, can reach Palembang, which is undeniably the most important base for Japan's economy in the entire ocean, like in the entire Pacific. Palembang is the largest producer and refiner of oil in one hex on the map. So he does, I think he has to make a play for Burma. At the very least, Rangoon and Pegu. The northern portions of Burma don't matter as much because if you take Rangoon, you can't supply these bases for any kind of meaningful quantities of whatever. There's also the fact that as long as we have an uninterrupted link between Rangoon and Pashuan, as long as there's a single line here with these railways here, China gets 2,000 supplies per day via the Burma Road, and sort of like just free supply showing up in China, which is a huge help. Like, based on what the Chinese total supply amount was, and then like a month ago, we had, I think, doubled to tripled our total supply amount in China. And one of the biggest things in this game that handicaps China's ability to be an effective threat against the Japanese is lack of supply, which prevents drawing reinforcements. It prevents fighting effectively. If you can keep China supplied, the quality and quantity of the troops that they get starts to dramatically improve in 1943. And if you've got the supply to use it, you can really be a pain in the ass in Japan's, side. So a lot of players have already rolled big chunks of China by this point in the game. Japan did make strides. They took Changsha. They took a lot of these sort of central Chinese towns, but they haven't made a serious push yet. And I think one probably will be coming. But nonetheless, it's going to be harder because we've got this road here between Burma and China open. So if I was the Japanese, I would make a serious play at taking Burma and then make a push in China once the supply is cut off. Alternatively, you could just make a big push in China. But either way, you probably want to do one of those two things. It'll help your victory score immensely. To win as the Japanese at the end of 42, you have to have 3 times the Allied supply or victory point total. So right now they're at 17,000. We're at 10,000. Not quite to 2 times ours, but they still have to increase that even further, which, given the bases they've already taken, I think the only way to do that would be to take both Burma and China in its entirety in the next 6 months, or take Burma and big chunks of India. But I think that would be hard. That would be hard to do. It'd be easier for Japan, I think, to try and take China, or maybe a flyer and drive south toward New Zealand out of New Caledonia. But I think that's crazy from how do you support that logistically? Because as soon as the carriers are gone, your supply line's cut. Anyway, I don't plan to enter Thailand, so I'm thinking the brigade we have moving from Mole Mine here, the 7th, or where is it, the 17th? No, the 46th Indian Brigade. I believe they're going to use the coast road, just barely avoid entering Thailand. That's a lot of me talking. I don't know that there's a lot else to show on this particular turn. We showed the ship sunk. Ship availability, we've got some stuff coming up soon. That's always true for the Allies, but we've got the heavy cruiser Quincy arriving near Panama in 3 days. That can link up with the Enterprise when it arrives there. We've got a bunch of mine layers. We've got a auxiliary tender, a couple of submarines, the famous Wahoo, and then Guardfish, the cargo ship Oberon, another cargo ship Port Orford, some mine layers. We've got some destroyers arriving in 4 days. Some sub chasers or yard minesweepers here in about 3 weeks, but that's kind of what we're looking at here over the next few weeks. In terms of top pilots, I don't think anything's changed there other than, basically it's all the same aces. Nothing really changed. We didn't lose any pilots or anything this turn. Ground withdrawal, we've got some units that are about to withdraw. I do have some units on the way to Palmyra and Johnson Island, Christmas Island to replace these boys. Losing the 19th Combat Engineer Regiment at Penryn kind of sucks. That's a very good combat engineer unit, 63 assault value. Also is at sort of a hinge point in our supply line to the Pago Pago and Suva groups down here. which kind of sucks. Nice engineering unit. They built up a level 4 defense. They're almost to level 5 fortifications. They're also working on the airfield there to try and get it to a level 1. Hopefully they can get that stuff done before they've got to withdraw off the map, and I'll get more reinforcements in that way. Group withdrawals. So we do also have some units withdrawing. Maybe he's going to wait in Burma. You know, one thing he could do in Burma is wait. He does know some of our logistical timelines. He's played the game a lot, but he also was helping our logistics early in the game. So he probably knows that the Flying Tigers, the AVG 3, 2, and 1, are all going to have to pull out in about 3 weeks. So they have 22 days left before their withdrawal date, which means that's 75 top-of-the-line fighters. 50 of them are P-40Es. 27 of them are the priceless P-38Es, which we do not have many of, flying the most experienced pilots in those groups. All groups have like 60-plus average experience. These are the closest thing we have that can go toe-to-toe with the Japanese naval aviators. And so he knows in 3 weeks we will lose 75 aircraft all in the Rangoon area of the highest caliber crews. We do have considerable reinforcements available to us in India, but they are not of the same caliber planes. So to that end, we have started working on a replacement squadron for the AVG group, at least one of them. At Chittagong, we have the, where are they? The 49th Fighter Group has started to equip with P-38Es. So they are getting up to speed on that. You can see the pilots here. Quite a few good pilots, but not as good as the AVG group. I do think we will have access to all the AVG group planes, or pilots, so we can stack these guys up with the pilots out of the reserve pool once they pull out. So that's part of our plan, but that's only 25 planes. Now, once the group withdraws, we could probably assign the P-38s here to one of the P-40 groups. We don't have a lot of P-38Es, and I believe production ended or ends soon, maybe at the end of this month, but we've only got 13 in reserve right now, and we're only producing 1 or 2 every other day, so probably can't get a considerable number there. Plus, you want some reinforcements when you fight a battle, but we might be able to have 50 P-38s back at Rangoon when these other guys withdraw. And also some P-40 groups, but again, not as good of experience. You can see average experience 51. So I have to do a lot of moving around pilots here because you can see the average experience of the 38 group, 72. These guys are like all ace caliber pilots. Pappy Boyington, I believe, is the unit commander. And then you've got these 2 P-40E groups with 63 in the 60. So very, very good planes. Yes, Kamikaze map mod, but not the most recent version of it. So it has changed a little bit. I don't know where to get it. I got it literally years ago. But yeah, ooh, man, guys, I'm out of breath. That was a lot of talking. Not a lot to show, but a lot to say, I guess. If we take a look at SIGINT, I guess this is one interesting piece. The second independent mixed regiment is planning for an attack on Sian in China. So it does look like they are planning for a northern drive, perhaps, in China, which makes sense. Sian is vulnerable. If you look at Sian, it is in a clear hex, which means armor can be very effective there. It's got decent defenses. Also, additional troops just to the south. So we can have quite a few units in Sian or defending south of Sian. This is better defensive terrain south of Sian. But what they'd probably do is go along this railroad line, then jump the river and attack from the flank through clear terrain. If they do that, though, we have considerable forces to the north. So if you see if the enemy drives up this roadway, northern China will fall. Sorry, Mao, I don't really care. But the key is protecting sort of this interior line after these mountains, this sort of plain in here down to Chongqing where the capital is. Very valuable from a victory point perspective. You can see to Japan it's worth 2,800, to the Allies it's worth 1,400. That would instantly get them over ×2, not to 3, but to ×2 victory value. But they got to go through the mountains. If they go through Sian, they still have to swing west to the mountains. So we are building up defenses at Kinko, where it's level 3 forts already, and we're working toward 4. We also have troops in the mountains where they can't be dislodged, like you can't use engineers to reduce the forts here. We've got a bunch of anti-tank guns here just north of Anqing to prevent an easy flank. And then we've got another group of troops here, but, you know, Sian would be the logical place to start a drive on China to weaken us there. So We are prepared for it, but I don't know how strong he can go that direction. That being said, I know that was, again, a lot of me talking. I think that's all I have to show you guys on this turn. Oh, Prince of Wales, how's she doing? Prince of Wales on its way back to England for repairs. Hasn't taken any more engine damage, so still moving at flank speed. She'll arrive in 9 days to the British dockyards in the United Kingdom, where we will start a high-priority repair task there. But with that being said, that's going to do it for today's episode of War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition. I hope you guys are enjoying this series, and I will leave you with a theme song which I made using AI. I'm not a huge AI person, but I messed around on Udioy or whatever the website's called every now and then, just for fun stuff during the streams. And I made one I've kind of got 2 theme songs-ish. This one's about 2 minutes long. I'll leave you with that as we head on our way out. But hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks again. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying, I'm out.
Epic battles on a screen so bright turn into massacres by the end of the night. He's the loner with a strategy weak, watching dreams of victory turn to defeat. History's lessons never quite learned as pixelated bridges are burned. I sat behind that dim-lit screen. So many troops I've marched to their end, led by a general known to lose my own men. Gone time and again, a few missteps and it's a rout once more. In this digital world, they trust me in vain. The last march plays on that old machine, with pixel fires and cries that pierce, haunted by the ghosts of digital men. He's the gamer with the infamous name. His heart beats a mournful, sorry tune as he sends another brigade to their doom. Oh, the flags wave on my tired screen, their colors bright, but fate's unseen. The historic gamer rides once more through vertical fields of endless war. Commands are given, the battle's set, but the end's the same as when we first met. Pixels form their ranks so brave, looming war, a pixel grave. Lines are drawn, the fight's at hand, under commands that never stand. Historical gamer, eyes unkind, can't seem to leave those bots behind.